Good morning. My name is Natalie Fanny Gonzalez, and I am the council member for Council District 6, and I'm also the chair of the brand new Economic Development Committee. This committee was created by Council President Evan Glass, who's also a member of the committee, and includes two other council members, Councilmember Marilyn Balcom and Councilmember Lorraine Ann Sales. We are the only county committee with 4 members, which means it takes 3 members to reach quorum. Contrary to other committees that have 3 members, and in that case, they only need 2 members to reach quorum. That's a very important logistical detail. As many of you know, I was a member of the planning board, and when I became vice chair, every time the chair was absent, that meant that I was the acting chair, and we have 4 members on the planning board. So the dynamic of having 4 members is something that I'm already very used to dealing with. Before we dive into the agenda for today's session, I would like to set the expectations for this committee, including what our work plan will be like. Let me start with Governor Wes Moore. He has been loud and clear with his intention. We must end child poverty in the state, and I want to see him succeed with that goal. We in Montgomery County, a place with deep pockets of poverty, must see him succeed. Our eyes must be wide open about the fiscal and economic challenges ahead of us as the federal pandemic support winds down, and I have 0 expectations for further federal stimulus. We must figure out how to address building more deeply affordable housing and overcome our challenges in education, crime, health, and transportation, just to name a few. Last night, thinking about this economic reality, I went over the Maryland budget presented by the Moore administration. You can see one of the slides that I pulled out. The outstanding characteristic of the Maryland economy compared to the national economy is Maryland's poor record of economic growth, despite their great wealth and tremendous assets. Just look at the data. This is not me giving you my opinion. This is data that was presented by the governor. The slide that you see right now, page 8 of the report, talks about Maryland's unemployment rate, which lags behind Virginia, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. That is not a good look. So that's a reality that we need to always keep in mind when we're working in this committee, particularly ahead of today's presentations. Going back to the mission of ending child poverty, I decided to look into MCPA's data. MCPA slide 1 that you see here, I found this document. It's a presentation that they gave back in November of 2022 on student performance. Keep in mind that this data reflects the consequences of the pandemic. Yet it is absolutely relevant that as the Economic Development Committee, with the duty of looking into workforce development, we must see and understand the state of our future workforce. This is what's happening now. Tell me if you can run the slide. Let's run some of the slides with particular interest on the district assessment data and the classroom data. The STERNA data that you see there is the MAP test, which is the measures of economic progress, and the SAT, for example. It is tragic that kids in 5th grade in mathematics, they have that type of scores. The red means not good. That's our future workforce. If you continue, Tommy, for the next one, we can see math in grade 8. Then the next one, math for grades 11. And then the next one is literacy in grade 11. I show it because every time we talk about workforce development, you need to see what's happening right now in our schools. It's pretty simple the way I see it. Companies chase talent, and talent drives growth. We cannot compete in this economy if our future workforce falls behind. We cannot compete if we don't modernize our practices and increase our expectations. We cannot compete if we don't work together with all branches of government, with our nonprofit sector, with our business sector, with our education partners to engage families and lift up people out of poverty. In the spirit of partnership, I asked for a joint meeting between our ECON committee and the Education and Cultural Committee on February 9 to talk about workforce development with MCPS, Montgomery College, WorkSource, and other partners that deal with the education sector. This committee needs to understand how MCPS is closing the achievement gap, particularly in communities that are clearly falling behind. Again, this is a workforce issue. We need to understand how they're tracking the progress of our students. I need to understand how long it will take to make transformational impact with our students. I want to now to know exactly why how each school is performing, including elementary schools. I need to know how school principals are engaging parents and even the private sector for assistance in uplifting each of these students. Again, the future workforce for this county. And I want to know why, when I walk by the McDonald's on Georgia Avenue near Randolph Road, why I see at 10 o'clock in the morning a whole bunch of high schoolers inside the McDonald's instead of being in the classroom or doing workforce development or workforce study. I need to know that because they are the future of this county. If we don't talk about this, then what are we doing here? The other key issues that we will be addressing is permitting services. I am requesting a session with DPS alongside the planning department on February 27, right here in this committee. We need to discuss streamlining permitting to make it more efficient, but also more responsible towards businesses and residents. Coming from the Park and Planning Commission, I am extremely familiar with the way our development applications reviews get done, including the work of the Development Review Committee known as DRC. It's time for Park and Planning Agency to evolve alongside the county's permitting department. I know I, as a particular county council member, can easily request OLO to do a report on this matter, but frankly, I believe that we as a committee should be requesting that and making sure that we all, answer questions to ensure that that report really reflects the needs of our county. So I'm gonna ask the OLO team to be present in that session to listen to our questions and dialogue between DPS and the planning department on DRC and see how we can modernize our system. I love park and planning with all my heart. As you guys know, that's my family. But as a family member, I also want to see them succeed. We are all replaceable here. Today I'm here, tomorrow there will be somebody else, but I want to make sure that the time I'm spending here will be a foundation to make this county better. And I want to do it with these guys next to me as a committee. Okay, so now looking at what we have as a county, besides amazing people with dreams and the passion to accomplish everything that we put our eyes onto, we know that life science and biohealth is our most important industry, and it should be our goal to make it Montgomery County the #1 life science cluster in America. That's why the conversation on with DPS and permitting in planning, it's so critical. We have great companies, both big and small, both the life sciences, on hospitality, defense sectors, to craft breweries, software development, and green construction. In fact, we have lower rents on commercial space than other major urban centers like New York City and Boston. Yet, that is not enough. We must foster a business environment through our incubators and related programs. We must improve access to capital to early growth companies with a particular focus on businesses led by women, people of colors, and individuals with disabilities. And I'm not going to shy away from that. We must facilitate adaptive reuse of underutilized real estate spaces to house small-scale labs and manufacturing spaces. To that end, I'm calling on the creation of an office work group with the brokers and commercial land owners from throughout the county. The conversation about the OLO report that we are about to have, plus the one that we're about to have today, plus economic indicators, will certainly help guide this work group, which will report to this Economic Development Committee as early as May. The members of that work group will be distributed among committee members, and you all can at folks that you think should be members. But that needs to happen. I will soon be sharing with the committee that information. I take this opportunity to mention that I have asked Council Member Marilyn Balcom to lead the Workforce Development Group for this committee, just because I think she's fabulous. And I think we're in great hands with having her lead that particular area. So besides working with MCPS, as I previously stated, we will be working with the trades industry. Think of iron workers, carpenters, electricians, and so on. We'll have a work session dedicated to these trades and the challenges they are facing. Small businesses form the backbone of our economy and provide most of our jobs. We need to strengthen our business incentive programs, MOVE and microloans in particular, so that our small businesses know that they have a partner to grow here. We need to operate with urgency towards a gate to yes culture with every interaction with the business community has with the county government. Expect this committee to talk about sustainability in economic development, including a strong focus on green jobs. We must create demand for clean energy jobs, the electrification of homes and buildings, and retrofits for energy efficiency. Think about the incredible potential of agrotourism in the agricultural reserve and creating urban farms in Down County, and certainly think about transportation infrastructure that supports building out the BRT system, improving ride-on, building the proper line, working towards a more efficient MARC rail, and connectivity in our neighborhoods so people can walk, bike, and roll safely. Reliable transportation supports economic development and reduces social vulnerability by enabling people to access those jobs as well as food, healthcare, and recreation. And yes, I'm sure you're all thinking about cannabis as much as I am, particularly as the General Assembly works on regulation in this industry. So this committee will take at some point meetings on cannabis as part of economic development. Look at the arts and entertainment districts as economic development tools, and the sports industry as well. With all of that, I look forward to the presentations from Mr. Aaron from OLO, followed by the MC/EDC on economic indicators. And I'm going to ask committee members to please hold your questions until they're done with their presentations. And I will ask Council Member Sidney Cast, who's joining us today as our amazing guest, to be the first one submitting questions, just because he was the one who requested the OLO report last year. So I want to give him the honors for that. So, yes, you may. Yes.
Well, good morning, Madam Chair. I appreciate you sharing your vision for this committee, and I am looking forward to serving with all three of you and other council members who want to join this important committee. And I think it is telling that this is the committee with 4 members on it, and at its inaugural meeting there are 5 members here, showing how important the work that this committee is about to undertake, the importance of that work. And you know, we all, the 4 sitting members of this committee, come to this space with unique perspectives, with different backgrounds, and I think that will make for a richer dialogue, quite frankly, recognizing that we live in a diverse community. There are a lot of different needs and a lot of different ways to interpret and achieve economic development. And that is why this committee was created, because this council and this body has traditionally not had enough space for these important conversations. And so I look forward to this conversation today. I look forward to working with all of you, because there's a lot of work that we have to get done. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And with that, we can start the presentation.
Thank you so much. My name is Aaron Tromka with the Office of Legislative Oversight, and I'm really pleased to present this OLO report, Establishing and Maintaining a Business-Friendly Environment, to the inaugural meeting of the Economic Development Committee. So, as requested by the Council, and as noted as proposed by Councilmember Katz, OLO prepared the study of economic development policies and strategies that successfully promote business creation and growth. Now, when we took on this assignment, it became clear that we need to further refine the study scope and approach. The first challenge was how to determine if a strategy had been successful. For this, we avoided self-evaluations by the entities that actually implement programs and instead searched for independent third-party evaluations. That led us to conduct a literature search, primarily of studies by university and research institutions. Next, we had to define what it means to promote business creation and growth. Does this mean helping individual businesses improve its bottom line, or should it address overall economic well-being of the community? So for this report, we broadly focused on initiatives demonstrated to have improved the business climate and the economic well-being of all members of the community, not solely individual businesses. The full written report is available on the OLO website. The written report includes dozens of excerpts from the writings of third-party economic and business analysts. For today, I will highlight a small subset of these writings, covering topics including business tax rates, tax incentives, regulatory compliance, business grants and loans, access to capital, incubators, mentoring and technical assistance, workforce development, as the chair mentioned, and business clustering. It's a lot of ground to cover. We will get this done in less than 20 minutes. The focus of the report is on policies and strategies that can be addressed at the state or local level. And finally, an important caveat. An overview of this sort runs the risk of oversimplifying often complex analyses. The findings I present today I believe to be generally supported by the literature, but do not necessarily apply to all cases and all situations. So let's get into it, starting with business or corporate tax rates, and more specifically the question of what the literature says about cutting tax rates to stimulate economic growth. Low tax rates do reduce business operating costs, and so states with lower tax rates may be at a competitive advantage in attracting and retaining really large businesses. However, nonpartisan assessments by the Congressional Budget Office, the Congressional Research Service, and others demonstrate that tax cuts do not necessarily improve the overall economic conditions. Indeed, these studies find scant evidence to justify corporate tax cuts as a means to promote overall economic growth and job creation. That's what we discussed at the beginning. It's about raising all of the ships, not just in certain individuals. So here's an excerpt from the Congressional Budget Office study. The CBO concluded that tax cuts do not stimulate business spending because production depends on the ability to sell output. That is, business output is a function of consumer demand, and corporate tax cuts often do not generate a meaningful increase in consumer demand. As mentioned, other independent analyses came to similar conclusions, but I'm going to move on to the next topic, and we're going to now talk about business tax incentives. States and local governments often offer businesses tax credits or other incentives targeted to a particular industry or specific geographic area. Now, tax incentives are friendly to those who receive the benefit. The issue is that governments that implement tax incentives usually do not absorb the lost revenue. Rather, they redistribute the revenue burden to other businesses who then pay higher taxes. This creates a bit of a market distortion that puts some businesses at a competitive disadvantage. Further, much of the literature shows that tax incentives may not generate increased spending across the overall economy. Thus, all things being equal, the large majority of independent analysts have concluded that tax incentives usually do not improve overall business climate. But we know that things have not been equal in our economy. Black people, Latinx people, women, and others have encountered discrimination that have hindered economic advancement and created wealth gaps. Targeted incentives can help rectify these inequities. Again, let's go to the literature. A 2020 paper published by economists from Columbia Business School and Princeton University addressed the efficacy of tax incentives. Their research found little evidence that tax incentives increase broader economic growth. A Brookings study found similar results, that tax incentives rarely affect a business decision on where to locate and rarely increase overall tax revenue. Nonetheless, Brookings found that tax incentives may be an effective tool in addressing equity concerns. and that inclusive economic policies, such as tax incentives targeted to historically disadvantaged communities, can spark economic development that otherwise would not have occurred. Moving on to regulation. The appropriate level of regulation is a subjective judgment, how to balance unfettered economic growth against achieving public goods such as fair competition, workplace safety, public health, and environmental protection. Regulatory policies necessarily involve trade-offs between achieving these public goods and fostering business autonomy. Not surprisingly, the literature presents a range of perspectives, with right-leaning institutions favoring minimal regulations and left-leaning institutions promoting the public benefits achieved through regulation. In each state and locality, policymakers must weigh the relative value of safety, health, environmental benefits of regulation against the effects on business growth, investment, and job creation, and determine the appropriate level of regulation based on their priorities. Yet, both right and left agree on one point. Whatever level of regulation is established, government should continually review practices to achieve efficiencies and reduce the effort, costs, and time required for businesses to comply, much as the chair had mentioned in her opening comments. Now, to look at the literature, I'll highlight on the writings of the Pew Charitable Trust. According to a survey conducted by Pew, business leaders are less interested in eliminating regulations outright and more interested in getting help navigating the regulatory process and receiving timely and predictable regulatory decisions. Often, after-the-fact enforcement is the primary means of ensuring regulatory compliance. The first time a business interacts with the government, they hear a no from their application. Alternatively, however, governments can promote regulatory compliance through proactive consultation and guidance. Governments can create a friendly business environment by preventing potential violations before they cause harm and quickly resolving problems when they do happen, writes Pew. The goal is to achieve predictability in the regulatory process, for example, by advising businesses on the applicability of specific regulations and the steps needed to navigate the permitting process, or by identifying potential obstacles before submission of a permit application. In addition, Pew writes about the needs to routinely review regulatory practices to address inefficiencies. Quite simply, when poor regulatory practices calcify, there is an economic cost to businesses and therefore to the community as a whole. Interestingly, the pandemic spurred movement towards greater efficiency in recent years, with regulatory agencies doing things like modifying requirements of paper submissions with online forms and electronic document submissions. Moving to business grants and loans, which are really the most direct form of government assistance to business. And we're all familiar during the first 2 years of the pandemic, the federal government, the state government, the county government, we all provided grants or loans to help businesses weather the economic slowdown. But the question is, even absent an economic crisis, the literature shows that grants and loans are particularly helpful to emerging small businesses that face initial high startup costs but lack access to investors and capital. Research also finds that grants and loans produce the best results when provided at the earliest stage of business development. The Brookings Institution offers guidance to government that provide business grants and loans. Brookings found that grants offered in the earliest stages of a business venture have a stronger impact on the probability that a firm will receive venture capital and achieve revenue versus later stage awards. Often, businesses, particularly small businesses, incur great costs and undertake significant risk just to launch their venture. At the outset, access to external funding is critical, but we also know that limited access to capital can impede entrepreneurial activity. Government can expand access to capital through initiatives such as loan guarantees programs. Research clearly shows that insufficient access to capital often is a barrier to business creation and expansion, especially for small businesses with large startup costs. What is also painfully clear is that access to credit is a particular challenge for entrepreneurs of color who have experienced discrimination in lending. The public sector can play a role in cultivating small business entrepreneurship through credit assistance targeted towards disadvantaged entrepreneurs. The Kauffman Foundation presents research on the challenges facing entrepreneurs who cannot rely on bank loans and family wealth to build new business. Really shocking data. Kauffman found that 83% of entrepreneurs do not have access to bank loans, and almost 65% rely on personal and family savings for startup costs. And given the wealth gap in America, these challenges particularly affect people of color. Kauffman notes that the wealth gap is a product of past discriminatory policies, and found that when business owners do not have access to personal funds or quality capital, they are less able to take risks necessary to grow their businesses, artificially stifling the marketplace. In other words, the entire local economy suffers when able entrepreneurs lack an opportunity to grow a business. Next, I'm going to combine two sections of the report, that dealing with business incubators and another one dealing with mentoring and technical assistance. And just note that a business incubator is a program that offers startup businesses access to resources including workspace and equipment, as well as mentorship and training. First, the third-party research found that while incubator space and equipment sustain businesses during startup, this form of assistance may also artificially prolong ventures unlikely to succeed absent external support. Rather, the most essential incubator service to promote viable business activity are training, mentorship, and networking. Government programs that offer mentorship and technical assistance have the best results in helping entrepreneurs overcome early-stage business development hurdles. More specifically, mentors familiar with industry-specific conditions and trends can help evaluate underlying soundness of a business plan and its likelihood of attracting investors. Also, research shows that mentorship and technical assistance may be of greatest value to minority entrepreneurs who lack access to financing, training, and other business resources and networking. So again, going to the literature and looking at incubators, a study published by the Harvard Business Review questioned the value of incubator workspace. According to this study, it's not the workspace, furniture, and internet that help viable ventures succeed. Instead, it's the development of a marketable good or service. Further, a Whitman School of Business study found little correlation between traditional incubator services and positive economic growth. And their research concluded that firms in incubation are still more likely to fail and not grow than other businesses. Now, this is not to say that this form of business assistance is of no worth. Rather, the focus should be on mentorship, technical assistance, much more than on the physical space. The Kauffman Institute study of incubators also found limited value in incubator workspace, with the possible exception of ventures requiring precision laboratory equipment. And they concluded a holistic system that integrates into incubators' employees, mentors, and peer entrepreneurs will allow them to acquire the skills, knowledge, and support they need. Again, it's the skills, knowledge, and support much more than the physical assets. Brookings studied the role that mentorship and training in fostering entrepreneurial success and found that these elements are particularly important in addressing racial disparities. Mentoring, training, technical assistance were found to be critical in countering racial disparities in educational attainment, personal wealth, access to mainstream capital, and exposure to entrepreneurship. Moving on to, again, another topic raised by the chair, workforce development. That is, programs designed to create and retain a workforce with skill sets in demand by the local businesses. Here, the literature presents a clear and constant message. Workforce development programs must constantly evolve. With the ever-changing modern job market, routine reevaluation of workforce development curriculum is vital to assure alignment with the evolving skill sets in demand both by existing and emerging businesses. Now, the evolution of workforce development may also need to expand beyond the worker to programs that address the needs of workers and their families, both to serve business community and to alleviate poverty and racially based wealth gaps. Here I turn to an Aspen Institute report that addresses the point through a two-generational, or two-gen, approach to workforce development. As an example, they write about a college or career training program that connects adult caregivers with child care programs as a way to simultaneously support both worker skills development and child development. We'll conclude this survey today with the topic of business clusters. For some industries, a business-friendly environment is one that fosters connections among related firms, research institutions, suppliers, employers, and clients. Now, on this topic, I need to note that the pandemic has disrupted the notion that employees must always co-locate in a single building, neighborhood, or community. So the future of business clusters, in part, will be dependent on whether co-location of workers in certain industries becomes the exception or the norm. That being said, clustering of technology-based businesses near anchor institutions like universities and research and development agencies, which we have in this county, may establish an ecosystem of economic activity and growth that serves both entrepreneurs and the host community. Local governments can support business clustering through land use policies featuring accessible concentration of offices, retail, recreation space, and housing. A Brookings policy paper describes the land use attributes that support a type of clustering known as an innovation district. An innovation district is the co-location of related technology-based businesses near anchor institutions like those universities or research entities. Brookings found that innovation districts are best nurtured through dense, mixed-use development that does not isolate housing, office, and commercial activities from each other. So, again, the written report includes many more excerpts from these and other topics, but let me just summarize our conclusions. And our conclusions present 6 principles to guide economic development policies. First, to distinguish between helping businesses and cultivating economic growth. Some policies may be beneficial to a specific business's profit margin, but do not necessarily promote overall economic growth. They don't necessarily raise all ships. Secondly, implement economic development programs based on evaluation and evidence. Some programs intuitively seem sound, but lack the evidence to confirm that they indeed promote growth. Efforts should be directed toward programs shown to help businesses develop marketable goods and services. These include access to capital and mentorship programs. Third, customize and update government programs consistent with current local business needs. Government best supports businesses when programs adjust to the needs of locally based industries. For example, workforce development must constantly evolve to align with the changing skill sets in demand by local industries. 4, reduce barriers to economic activities. Government actions can support businesses' creation and growth by simplifying their interactions with government. For example, by continually reviewing regulatory practices to achieve efficiencies and reduce the cost of compliance. 5th, diversify assistance and let the market determine which ventures are most viable. Governments should assist business creation and growth without trying to predict which specific businesses and entrepreneurs will succeed. Grant, loan, and credit access programs should aim to diversify resources to support a range of ventures and allow the market to determine which businesses ultimately can succeed. And 6, expand entrepreneurial assistance to populations that have been excluded from economic opportunities. People of color have encountered long-standing discrimination that has severely constrained their ability to access economic activity and amass wealth. Government policies can help address some of these inequities. So that concludes my presentation. I'll turn it back to the chair and to the committee, and I hope this provides a structure for your discussion today. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time and all the work you have done in this report and your presentation, Aaron. I'm going to start with asking Mr. Councilmember Sidney Katz to start with your questions.
Thank you very, very much, Madam Chair. I decided over the weekend that I needed to get a cold, so I am wearing a mask from time to time, though I'm much better than I was in the beginning of the weekend. First off, thank you for allowing me to be a part of the first topic today. I did ask for the OLO report, and Mr. Trumka, obviously, on this, as many other topics, has done an excellent job. And not that I knew that you were going to do your opening remarks, Madam Chair, but I want to congratulate you on those opening remarks and reminding us of the fact that economic development involves every part of government, whether it be education, whether it be planning, whether it be HHS, and yes, as Chair of Public Safety, it certainly involves public safety as well. And this report also reminds us of that. My background, in a very quick background, was one of small business. My grandparents started a store, a small business in Gaithersburg in 1918, and I ran that store up until during the time I was mayor of Gaithersburg, and up until the time I became a county council member. And when Mark Elrich and I were on this body together, He came, once he became county executive, and said, would I work with him for small businesses? It's, as you mentioned earlier, it's certainly the backbone of Montgomery County and really of America. And I said to Mark at that time, I said I would, and I would love to do that, but we needed to do a listening session. We needed to go across Montgomery County and listen to what small businesses had to say, not just what we thought small businesses were concerned about. And he agreed to it, and he sat next to me in 6 listening sessions. And I think it should be pointed out, and it speaks well of the county executive side. The chief administrative officer, Jake Weissman, is here, and one of his areas of focus is economic development, and he's here to work with us. But you know, when Mark and I first started these listening sessions, the first session, someone sat down and was talking about procurement from the county, which I hadn't even considered. I mean, I was interested in somebody saying, I'd like to, develop my dream. I'd like to open up a small business. And the first person said, the procurement, something that would help our businesses in Montgomery County to do business with Montgomery County, is terrible. You made me fill out, I think, and my numbers get wavy on this, but I think the first person said that it was 90 pages that they had to fill out, and the next person said, well, I'll see that and raise you some. I mean, it was like 100 and some. And Ash Shetty, who was is still in charge of procurement for Montgomery County, by the third meeting had come back and gotten that form down to 9 pages. We went from this to this within a couple weeks. And it showed that when we find out something is wrong, we can change it. We can correct it. We do a lot of things right. We just don't publicize them. And there's things we don't do right, and we need to change that. There are people who are afraid of inspectors, and they shouldn't be. An inspector should not let anybody do anything unsafe, unsanitary, anything beyond. But they also should be a mentor. They also should be to say, you got to do it this way, and first explain why. We don't want you to be unsafe or unsanitary. The person in that business doesn't want to be in an unsafe or an unsanitary situation. This committee, along with other agencies, has the opportunity to change the tenor and discussion of us not being business friendly to one of us being the business friendly place that we need to be and are, candidly, should be. We need to change the proof of what we're doing about economic development in Montgomery County. And Madam Chair, and I mean this very sincerely, you and with President Glass sitting here on this committee, Councilmember Balcom and Councilmember Sales, today is a new day. Today is a day that we prove that we can hit the ground running, that this is not going to be easy to do, but we can get there. And I also believe that with this report as a basis, that you get to that better spot. I also think perhaps you might want to, and Chair Balcom of the committee, is something to consider. But I think the listening tour was a good one. I think it made sense to go out and look at people in the eyes and say, look, if we're doing something wrong, tell us. If we're doing something right, tell us. And I also believe that it's important because it is so in tune with the county executive side that you have the county executive and his staff sitting there with you because permitting and all those other agencies are under him, and that he has to hear and has made changes in a lot of ways, but maybe not every way, that needs to be done. And I think that this is the time to say, most people who are in business don't care who told them that they couldn't do it, whether it's the county exec side or the county council side or whatever. They want to be opening their dream, and let us do it. So thank you very much, Madam Chair. I will stop. Thanks.
Thank you so much for your remarks. I really embrace every single word that you have stated. I'm going to allow Councilmember Marilyn Balcom to be next.
Great. Thank you. It's very exciting to be on this committee, and as Councilmember Katz said, it is a new day. Having this committee it just signals that economic development is important, and Councilmember Glass, President Glass, put this committee together, and I'm thrilled to be on it. Just specifically to address the report, I just wanted to mention a few things. What perfect timing the prescience you had of bringing this about. What a perfect way to start this committee by having this this report. So thank you so much. And I think we need to focus on the what's next with this report. What I would like to see is we see from the literature what's important. We need to prioritize what those criteria are for Montgomery County, and then we need to determine how we're doing on each of those criteria, and then determine how we can do it better. So I'm assuming that's our next step. I just wanted to touch on a couple of the issues. I think ease of regulatory compliance is so critical. It's something that the business community's been talking about for a long time. I come from the Chamber of Commerce world. This is the #1 issue that we have faced in the 17 years that I worked with businesses large and small. I think the vast majority of business owners want to do what they're supposed to do. They want to follow the regulation. They want to follow the compliance. And it's the county's responsibility for making sure that all business owners know those regulations and are seen as a partner in helping the business owner comply. And I know my other chambers, the county chamber, the Hispanic chamber, are here today, and I'm sure they could echo that as well. I think the business incubator, mentoring, technical assistance points were right on target. Jake Weissman is here from the county executive's office, and I think there's been certainly interest in some momentum, and I look forward to seeing how the business resources rolls out from the county executive's office, and I want to partner with the county executive on that. So I think that's really important. We have significant resources. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. What we need to do is to make sure that all businesses have equitable access to these resources and partners. So I look forward to looking at that. Just to fully support access to capital, business grants, that type of thing. I do just want to touch on the business tax rates. I understand the literature I'm talking about that it doesn't have a large impact, but by reducing the cost, you can reduce the price, which would increase the ability to sell. So that's just a little nuance. And then also the business tax incentives, we have to look at, we still do have targeted industries, so there's a nuance in whether tax incentives work if we're trying to target industries. The last 2 points, the business clusters, I just want to thank you for including that. It's important for recruitment and retention of the workforce that we have these business clusters. It's great for attracting and retaining highly skilled workers, especially with dual career families. If this region is a region that can support these highly skilled workers, people are more apt to come and stay here. And then one that wasn't addressed was quality of life. Councilmember Chair Fanny Gonzalez mentioned that in her opening remarks. We're not going to succeed as an economy if we don't have good schools, safe streets, parks, transportation, housing. So I think that goes along with opening remarks. And certainly Councilmember Katz reiterated that. So I'm excited, ready to roll up my sleeves and get to work. Thanks.
Awesome. I'm going to ask Councilmember Lorian Sells to please be next.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for the powerful opening. I was really excited to be a part of this committee, and now I'm even more fired up for what we're about to accomplish over the years. So thank you for setting the tone and expectation. Just want to mention a few key takeaways. Aaron, thank you for putting the report together. I already had a few questions when we first discussed the report, but just wanted to share some items for reflection. The total employment rate has continued to make strides since September of 2021. This shows a 1.7 percentage point increase. So total employment grew by more than 9,000 jobs. And unemployment in the county is 1.7 percentage points lower. So the growth rate that we're seeing in our industries, we saw an increase in software developers and waiters and waitresses in the food service industry. Those were the sectors that added the most jobs. And so when we're thinking about where we're going to focus our efforts, we want to make sure we're thinking about diversifying the jobs that we are preparing our workforce for. The highest percentage increase was among food service workers, which is a good sign that our hospitality industry is recovering. And as we're thinking about the travel industry and recovering that economy and what that's going to look like and how we attract businesses and support the next industry for workforce development, that's going to really focus on how we're working with our school system. I also noticed that Montgomery and Frederick County, we've gained about 16,000 jobs since September. So while the total labor force remains slightly behind 2019 pre-pandemic numbers, we primarily see that leisure and hospitality sector are in the lead. Also, an important area of gain that I noticed has been in the scientific research and development, which is up 2.5% year over year and 12.6% since June of 2019. So this focus on innovation centers and how we're preparing the workforce of tomorrow is going to be key. What I think about this report and the work of this committee and our key partners with the county's Economic Development Corporation, you know, I come from a background of project management, strategic planning, and so I'm hoping that what will result, since we've identified some of our priorities, are now goals of how we're going to actually address these priorities. So we see that, you know, we do see signs of a rebound economically, but the numbers do still appear to be cautious. And so do we have a vision, a cohesive vision and marketing strategy to respond to the economic conditions more aggressively? If we want to be number one and ahead of Virginia, we have to have a plan of action so that we can help you achieve that. These are high-level metrics and data, and so would it also be possible to have a work session later on down the line between the county's Economic Development Corporation and how we are trying to not only return to pre-pandemic economic levels, but exceed those numbers. Also, how are we engaging with our businesses now, especially as businesses are starting to return to the office and working with our chambers to improve the business climate? When was the last time that we've reached out to our businesses to really understand their needs? And so the idea of a listening tour is going to be really helpful. And then Chair Fanny Gonzalez mentioned the importance of our school system. You know, if we're going to really attract the businesses that we want, we have to ensure that our students are ready to take on those jobs. We're not going to attract top businesses with a struggling workforce that is struggling to prepare for even the most basic levels of math and English going into our school system. And so lastly, better understanding the needs of our businesses will better prepare us to prepare our students in the workforce to retain these jobs. And so looking forward to these this committee's work, and thank you again for the presentation.
Thank you so much for your remarks. After right after Council President Glass speaks, we're gonna have the Economic Development Corporation come in and talk about the economic indicators, the latest data, and then on February, I always have trouble saying that word, February 6th, we're gonna have a presentation about their strategic plan. So look forward to that one. That day, we're going to start at 9 a.m. just because we have a very, very special guest in front of the County Council at 10 o'clock, so we need to make it sweet and to the point. Council President Glass, you're next.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Appreciate the conversation, and also Councilmember Katz requesting the OLO report. Mr. Trumka, thank you. Really thorough. And I think it is enlightening to see the bigger picture on all of these issues and to get some data that national think tanks and advocacy organizations have provided their guidance or at least outlook. Enlightening to me, the component about tax incentives, particularly given the national discussion when jurisdictions and states try to outbid each other, try to outdo each other, try to spend as much money as they can to attract and retain businesses, fully understand why that's done. But as you have outlined here, it is not always a successful effort, either for the taxpayers or the businesses themselves. And that's not your analysis. That is the analysis of national outlook think tanks. But as this conversation continues nationally, I think it is important to keep that in mind. Again, understand why it's done. And for the record, I am not opposed to it, but eyes need to be open as you engage, as we engage in that process. And as Councilmember Balcom noted, and I am completely in agreement with, I think of all of these points, of the 9 points, the one that we can tackle the quickest and might be most impactful is the ease of regulatory compliance, cutting red tape, green taping projects, figuring out how many various pages there are and how much time those pages take, how many languages might be needed to be interpreted for businesses to comply. I think that's the easy one. It's not easy to do, but it's easily identified as probably the most impactful. And I'll share with colleagues, since we're discussing one OLO report, I've already requested another OLO report in that vein of seeing how regulatory compliance is distributed or required across the board. And so look forward to another work session in a number of months' time. But as we've all been saying, this is the work. And I hope that it is data-driven. And look forward to many more OLO reports so that as we figure out where we can cut, where we can use our resources best, it is informed. And so thank you for this report. And the one question I have for you, not that it is a leading question since I've shared my responses, but what did you find most surprising as you did this analysis?
I find most surprising. I think the topic of things that intuitively seem to make sense, but then when you think about them more, surprising results. The consistency in the literature about incubator workspace being much less important than the training, the mentorship, the networking, the access to finance. again, going into this, I did not expect to see that. The literature about, as you just mentioned, Council President, about the tax incentives and really the mixed or less results that they prove. Didn't go into it today, but there's a difference between tax incentives to lure that very, very large national company or to lure that auto plant in the rural South versus tax incentives that are just a matter of redistributing tax revenues, and that the fact that it makes a big difference whether or not the jurisdiction chooses to absorb the lost revenue or rather just redistribute it to other businesses. That was eye-opening to me too, similar to your comments.
Yeah, and I think last point I'll make is that as we, this is the first meeting of this committee, and as we have many more, focusing on the data, focusing on the literature is going to be important, but it is also important that when we question some of these strategies and tactics, they cannot be immediately interpreted as being anti-business or anti-anything, because what we're trying to do is figure out how our resources can best be used to grow our economy, to support the businesses, support the diversity that is already here. And in government, and I take a larger view here, there sometimes are sacred cows that can't be touched or discussed. And I just want us all, as we engage in this committee and in this newly constituted council, that we look at the data, we look at the research, and go where it leads us. Thank you.
Thank you for those fabulous questions. I would say though, to give love to the incubators, the best and most successful incubator in Montgomery County is in Germantown, just because of the labs that they have. And I know because I was on the planning board and I approved all those site plans involving the labs in Germantown, and that's like a great role model. But I love the fact about the whole point of mentorship is essential, especially looking at incubators in Silver Spring. That's a totally different story compared to Germantown. Go ahead.
I do just want to mention, we did talk about lab space, different than brick and mortar. And so I think that we do need to lift up that incubators with lab space are different than non-lab space.
Yes, and we got to give them love, just as I did. And then the other thing I would say is that at least, and I'm putting my hat as the council member for District 6, we're going to start within my staff, and I have Jose Ortiz, who's my lead in small businesses for my office. We're going to be starting canvassing among small businesses in Wheaton, Kensington, Glenmont, places that are within my district, asking business owners, what are your challenges, what are your dreams, what you're facing, just because, small business owners, they're busy. They don't come here. They're busy running a business and paying payroll. I used to be a business owner. I know. So we're going to get to them, and we're using the excuse of our transportation infrastructure town hall on February 22nd. That talks about connectivity and how that affects local businesses. So we're doing that, and I'm gonna share that information with all other district council members, two on my right, so they can see how we're doing it, and maybe, you guys wanna use to provide some ideas. I'm not saying that I'm doing it in a perfect way, I'm just telling you how I'm gonna start doing it. And then doing that in coordination with the county executive's office. I had a meeting with the folks dealing with the business centers with Jake, we keep mentioning your name. Next time you need to sit right here, I'm gonna say. And how we can work in partnership, because we don't do this by ourselves. So with that, I'm gonna ask the Montgomery County Economic Development Corporation to please come up and talk about their economic indicators data, and which will be a preview to their next presentation on February the 6th at 9 a.m. So, thank you. wants to start? I'm assuming Mr. Bill Tompkins.
Good morning. Proud to be here at the inaugural meeting of the Economic Development Committee. We could actually be here for every one of your sessions, and we're being invited to many of them. But before we start, what I would like to say is that it's a pleasure to have Montgomery County Economic Development Corporation be the lead but not the only agency who works on economic development. You referenced that in the earlier sessions. It is a true partnership, and a lot of the things that you mentioned in your opening ring with me personally in terms of what I think about when I come to work every day. A couple of comments based on the last session from the OLO report. What you will see going forward is that all of the items, both the 9 topics that they covered and the 6 recommendations, actually are reflected in the county's economic development strategic plan, which we're going to cover at the next session, and our work plan. So the themes are very consistent. And there's some priorities that we think make more sense than others, but I think we'll have a good roadmap to discuss what we do not only next week, but over the next 4 years. Just 2 or 3 comments again on what was presented, and I'm glad that Councilmember Katz was here. Those listening tours were incredibly powerful and impactful, and it did demonstrate 2 branches of government working closely together. As you go forward, and we do our own listening tours, I think it's also important that we reflect on what we heard and whether we have taken action on what we have learned, not just from that, but also the Economic Advisory Panel report that was done. We've got a lot of reports out there, and there are a lot of businesses who keep telling us, just do what we've already asked you to do or respond to what we've already talked about. So I think we can update that listening tour, but first by making sure that we have taken the opportunity to do what we can, or that at least it's on our list of priorities. Regulatory compliance, it's interesting that that was picked, I think, by Councilmember Glass, Council President Glass, as one of the topics. It hits us every single day. And it is a complex topic, by the way. As you pointed out, it's easy to pick. It's not necessarily easy to solve. But if you ask me about my gut, representing what we do every day, I think that's an area that if we make significant progress, you will get rid of so many of the myths about Montgomery County that we don't deserve. And so I'm really pleased to hear that. In terms of the incubators, that came up 2 or 3 times. In the last session, MCEDC did an updated report on the incubators and the incubator strategy, which we can provide for you. We came before the old Fed committee, and we actually reviewed this at our board meeting last week in terms of where we are with the county's incubators and how that fits into a larger ecosystem. So the timing of your comments is right. We have a lot of information on that, and that's another great example of 2 components working together, both the County Executive's Office and Montgomery County Economic Development. That being said, we have our partners, Montgomery Planning, and this is a project that we've worked on, and Carrie's going to talk about it in a little bit more detail since 2017. But what we're going to do is to walk you through each component of the current economic indicators, put it into perspective, and understand that we do this every quarter. And based on my conversations with you, Madam Chair, we are going to come every quarter to do that update along with some other things so that there's an ongoing dialogue and that we can measure the progress. As Council Member Sales pointed out, that while our numbers are getting better, and I'll paraphrase a little bit, they're good, but they're not great. And so we have to pay attention to that, both for where we want to be pre-pandemic and where we want to be relative to our competition or our partners in other jurisdictions. So let me first introduce Carrie McCarthy, and then we'll go to Ben Kraft, and then to Dave Barry.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Carrie McCarthy. I'm the Division Chief for Research and Strategic Projects at Montgomery Planning. As Bill said, we started this project in conjunction with MCDC around 2017. The Research and Strategic Projects Division at Montgomery Planning is a little in-house think tank on demographic, real estate, economic, housing, and other land use issues. And so while certainly we don't make planning decisions based on like what the interest rates are this quarter or what the the trends are. We think it's really important to monitor them, to provide information to stakeholders, both in the planning department, other agencies, the county council. And so we're really, we think economic development is very important to planning, and we're really excited to have this partnership with MCDC and to really serve as a resource to agencies and the public across the county.
So thanks, Carrie. Yeah, so I'm Ben Kraft. I am a research planner at Research and Strategic Projects, working with Carrie at Montgomery Planning. And I'm going to start just getting into this report. Councilmember Sales did a great job of actually going over a lot of things I was going to go over. So she did the work for me. So I'll just add a little bit of context, just starting out with the employment piece of this. So as Councilmember Sales mentioned, we are back. We are not back to where we were with pre-pandemic. And the main takeaway from all the employment is that we've covered a lot of ground after the pandemic, but we still have a lot of ground to go, and the recovery is kind of starting to slow. The labor force, and that's just people looking for work. You may be employed, may be unemployed. Is still almost 33,000 employees below where it's a pre-pandemic level. And over the calendar year, from the third quarter of September 2021 to September 2022, really you can see there we only gained 87 people in the labor force. So that's a very small gain of potential workers, actual and potential workers. Employment gained a lot more, actual people employed, which is a subset of the labor force. These are people who actually do have jobs. And so number-wise, they gained a lot more, but they still remain even farther in raw numbers below the pre-pandemic levels, at about 36,000 below what was employed prior to the pandemic. So there is still quite a bit of ground to make up in that. But putting those two together, small labor force, still a lot of jobs to fill. That is partly why we have this very low unemployment rate, which is standard for the region and even the nation. We're at 3.4%, or we were at least in September 22 at 3.4%. It's still a fairly good environment if you are looking for work to get it. So moving on to occupations, again, as Councilmember Sales mentioned, there's the top of the list. These are the 20 fastest growing occupations in this last year-over-year change from quarter 3 to quarter 3. The software developers, high wage, kind of the backbone of the modern economy. We are gaining employment in that. Now this is a little bit before. This data comes a little bit before, I think, the heart of this tech bust or whatever is going on right now. So I think when these get updated, we may not see this, we may have lost a little bit of that software development employment. But I think the key point is, if you look at almost all of the other occupations that are growing very quickly, they're really those quintessential occupations that were involved with direct interactions with people, tend to be very low paid, that really got hit hard during the pandemic. And you can see it's like numbers 2 to 5, food service, servers, restaurant cooks. You can go a little bit farther down and see food prep, then there's bartenders. So they're coming back, but still remain, as we'll see in another slide, or another chart, very far below their pandemic levels. And again, the preschool teachers, elementary school teachers, home health care aides, these really crucial jobs are still, it's still very hard to fill them. Part of this is also because you can see the wages are really not that high, and there's definitely competition for those. They can probably find work in other places, but we really need them to, clearly there's a need for all of those services that they provide. So now moving into the jobs by industry, by the kind of the large subsectors of industry, and just a little bit about the data in this report. We're jumping around from series to series, employment data series to employment data series. They all have their pros and cons depending on exactly what we want to do, but for the most recent employment data, and we're looking at employment at place, employment that happens in Montgomery County, regardless of where the person lives, which is in contrast to the resident labor force, which is where people live regardless of where they work. So we're switching over a little bit. Just want to give you a little. It's complicated depending on which series you're looking at, but so we're on the same page there. The total employment, we are in Montgomery County and Frederick County, and one other piece of that. This is about. The numbers there represent about 80% of that is Montgomery County. We have a much larger employment base than Frederick County. So for the most part, this is mostly concerned with Montgomery County. It's just we have to group them to get this data series. We are still down, for total employees. The year-over-year change from September 2021 to September 22 is about 2.8%. That's a nice increase, but we're still down 1.5% from pre-pandemic levels in total employment. Now, this is the bright spot that was also mentioned, and is a good bright spot. It's that if you look at the professional science and technical services, and then go down to the sub sector there, which is scientific R&D. For Montgomery County and Frederick, that is mostly life sciences research and development, and that, as we know, that's our main industry. That's our real economic base, the driver of our economy, and that industry is up 12.6% since pre-pandemic. That's good. Now this industry is up nationwide. It's doing really well. For obvious reasons, but Montgomery County is keeping pace in that, so that's good. And speaking of, this was also mentioned, but lab space is we could probably even be a little higher if we could really get that lab space online, and especially small scale lab space, which is, and will be there's lots of work going on with that. So so that's really just kind of the summary of that. And then the one last piece is that, as we've already mentioned, healthcare, social assistance, retail, leisure, and hospitality still have been growing rapidly, but still below pre-pandemic levels. And that is something that hopefully will continue to grow. And then one other piece of context is that this our employment, if you're just thinking of total, in this case, let's think about total private employment because we have such a large federal government presence. We're still, while we are recovering, and while all of our peer counties in the region are all below pretty much pre-pandemic levels, nobody's quite gotten back there yet. We are farther below. Montgomery County is farther below than all of our neighboring counties or DC. So we still have even more ground to make up than some of our neighbors. So I'll end with that and pass it over to Dave.
Hi, I'm Dave Barry. I am consulting on the indicators with Bill and MCEDC and planning, and I'm going to go over the commercial real estate section and multi-unit rent. These are taken from CoStar, which is the leading provider of commercial real estate and analytics big database. Quick definitions: the gross rent per square foot is the asking rent, which is literally what lessors are asking for, not necessarily what people are paying. But it is the indicator. The vacancy rate is clear. It's the amount of space divided by rentable building area over the quarter. Something called availability rate. Don't worry about that so much. It's kind of the same thing. It's just taken on the last day of the quarter. So don't pay much attention because that's like when leases are expiring. So it's usually a little higher, but office vacancies in the county have actually been increasing since before the pandemic. They reached 17.2% in the fourth quarter. It's high in other places. It's probably generally higher than the metro. I have noted that the state of Maryland, for various reasons, is much lower overall. But it's also high in Virginia, Arlington, Fairfax, for some of the same reasons. It is here. The retail landscape is healthy. The asking rent rose between about 4% and 5% year over year, and the vacancy rate, retail vacancy rate, dropped by 0.6 of a percentage point. that's around the average for every place else. And multi-unit rents, everybody knows, are an issue at everywhere, national, state, regional, local. I know there are signs that it's probably been cooling off fairly quickly recently, but the asking rents for multi-unit housing were 5% above the third quarter last year. And the vacancy rate increased only marginally from the prior year, and it's also pretty low vacancy rate at 5%. I think it's one of the lowest in the region. And I think, Carrie, you were going to do the home values. Yeah.
Turning to page 4, we include the residential rent information Dave covered and home data in this report because they're important for economic activity to understand, where the labor force is going to live in the county and, what kind of it's an important component of economic development. So home sales, it continues to be a really tough market. Prices increased, were 3% higher in September 2022 over September 2021. We also saw fewer closed home sales, 26% drop, and also fewer active listings, which is the number of units on the market. And so it really is just slowing down. And the list to sales price, slight reprieve, that starts to be a little bit better for buyers. Maybe we'll have to kind of see, because it really has been a seller's market, that ratio is 98.8%. But again, this is only sort of one quarter's data, tells us what's happening directionally. We need to kind of certainly keep watching it. Same thing, building permits, also down in Q3 2022. These permits are for new construction, and so only 121 units compared to, you can see the Q3 in 2019, 2020, 2021, well over 200. Multi-unit, usually it is the number of units. So we did have 573 units come online. That number varies significantly because you're going to have a whole multifamily building. So it'll be, over 100 units. There is in Q3 2020 a little bit of an oddity where it just says there was just one unit. That was actually a senior group home, and so that was permitted as one unit, but it contained multiple, it will house multiple people. Commercial permits, also down, although the amount of square footage was a lot higher. And the factor across the board driving a lot of this that's not on the report, I just looked up the numbers, the interest rates have increased significantly. In September 2021, the interest rate on a 30-year mortgage was 3%. The end of September 2022, it was up to 6.7%. And so commercial mortgage rates, are seeing similar rise. And so, the feds have to do it to fight inflation, but it's causing a lot of pause in markets where people are making investments. And from the affordability side, which was already challenging, it continues to make it even more challenging as people can afford less house given the higher interest rates. Now, Dave is going to talk a little bit about page 5 and venture capital.
Good.
Oh, sorry.
Actually, both of us can because we both know it only too well. So venture capital in the third quarter was a little bit low, but not unusual. Fewer deal counts. If you look historically, going through 2017, we measured about $300 to $400 million a year in venture capital coming into deals in Montgomery County. That has jumped up dramatically, driven primarily by life sciences and technology since. So we look at this to look at whether one deal is driving the venture capital coming in or whether it's multiple deals. And it just jumps all over the place from quarter to quarter. What I can say, trend-wise, we're still a strong county for attracting venture capital. And again, mostly life sciences. But if you take this past quarter, it was all over the place. Media companies, food-related, you name it. And so that's also a good sign. As much as we count on life sciences to drive our industry, we want diversification. I'm going to turn it back to Carrie. Dave, did you have anything that you wanted to add? Okay.
And to wrap up on page 6, demographic information, first I'll be back here tomorrow morning to give the full council briefing on demographics, so I'm not going to steal my full show from tomorrow. But this just gives you a sense of how diverse the county is, notably how highly educated we are. 60% of residents in the county have at least a BA, compared to only 35% in the country. And it's interesting, living here, sometimes you just forget outside the metro region, how higher the education levels are, and really that puts us a very unique position to attracting businesses. But I also want to kind of point out the point about the median age, that we're slightly older than the state of Maryland, we're older than the region, and older than the county overall. And that relates a bit to Ben's point earlier about labor force participation, and that figure declined, particularly during the pandemic, and also the home sales data that we monitor, and that we need to attract a younger workforce to replace, to provide labor force for people who are retiring. And so that, as you're working in economic development, kind of connecting the dots across those 3 areas, is something that we think is important.
So the relevance of that last section is indicative of how we do each report differently. We tend to highlight a particular topic. So for this one, the census information had just been updated. For the 4th quarter that we're working on now, I think we're going to concentrate on long-term real estate trends. And that's going to be a really big question for us here and as a region. What's going to happen to commercial real estate over the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years as we change our come to work models, and what does that imply for the economy and how we shift? So we'll open it up to questions, comments.
Thank you so much for the presentation. I think I learned a lot, and thank you for your work. And as always, I love seeing the planning team here in front of us. 2 things that come to mind, as I stated in my opening remarks, looking at the data from MCPS, and then comparing it with the data that you just showed on job growth, and looking at how little people make in certain industries. I mean, those are people of colors, the ones who are getting into, the industries that you highlighted, making not that much money, making $40,000, $30,000 a year. That's a big problem. We need to ensure that our Latino and immigrant and African American kids have all the tools they need right now, since they're in kindergarten, to be able to get onto those jobs that are paying $100,000, $130,000 and more. So that's top of my head right now, and making sure that we're successful in terms of helping them succeed. The other thing, on the lab space comments, is there like an analysis of where in Montgomery County we should be focusing more on having those small spaces for labs? I know I just mentioned Germantown a few minutes ago, but I also know Bethesda is a big, and White, in the North Bethesda, I was going to say White Flint, North Bethesda area are big magnets. But I'm also thinking, downtown Silver Spring, downtown Wheaton, we have a beautiful park and planning building with an empty retail space. Why not? Well, can we think about lab space right there in that particular location by the metro? So an analysis of where there's potential for energy to focus on, that'll be great. Unless that's already been done, and I have no idea. That's another point. And then, as I mentioned before, I'm putting together that office work group with brokers and land commercial owners to look at their spaces and think about how to modernize how business work in Montgomery County. So stay tuned on that, because I will need you to also be in touch with them and get their input and work in collaboration. With that, I wonder if Councilwoman Lori Ann Sells wants to be the first one asking questions, or is that okay?
Sure. Well, I asked a few of my questions earlier after hearing from Aaron's presentation. So thank you for giving us an update. I'm glad that we'll regularly be able to keep up with the progress of the county's economy. And so a few of the questions that I've already asked have already been answered, but I had a few other questions to include the following. And so I know that we recently stood up the racial equity and social justice arm. Are there going to be priorities looked at, economic indicators through those lenses that we'll see in the future?
Our entire work plan and the economic development strategic plan has a focus on that topic. In fact, the title of our work plan for this year is Equitable Economic Growth in Montgomery County. And there's a whole section on community wealth building. There's a whole section when you talk about the income gap. All of these items we can highlight even more, but the information is collected and we look at it very carefully. We have a long way to go. As diverse as this county is, it creates different types of pressures and opportunities to support diverse populations in much bigger ways, both through county services and the infrastructure to support that, while at the same time, when you talk about access to capital, you've got to be able to pour more capital directed into businesses and communities that can benefit. And it's a long, slow process. So we are monitoring that in multiple ways. And I think what we can do, to your point, is highlight that even better in both this report, but also the other reports we'll do, you'll see it. If I can go back to Council Member Fanny Gonzalez, in terms of wet lab space, there's about 4.9 million feet of wet lab space in the pipeline, 3 million has been committed and is being built. Now that's of every scale, whether it's for large companies or smaller ones. For wet lab space for smaller companies, we do know it tends to go where it already is because it's very expensive to build, like $100 a square foot to build out. And so if you look at what happened with the Germantown Innovation Center, it's being expanded right now to add wet lab space. There is a private developer who is doing that in the Gaithersburg, Germantown area now. And so we are monitoring that. When you talk about going into other parts of the county, like Wheaton and Silver Spring, it's doable, but again, expensive. And once that investment is there, you're not going to move it around. It needs to sort of stay there because of the infrastructure costs. But it's something that we'll continue to monitor and to figure out how we stay ahead of the game and provide better access.
Thank you.
Yes, I do. And so as we're talking about looking ahead, I also wanted to reflect on the past. I know that it hasn't been very long since the county's Economic Development Corporation was moved from county government, and so just wanted to find out what the original intent was and see, have we met those original goals that we set out to meet? And if not, where are we with those priorities as we look towards the future? And then when we talk about capacity building, it would be helpful to look at the corporation's budget, the makeup of the board, and find out if there is enough capacity to carry out the priorities that we envision for this body. Was that it?
So is that a question for today or ongoing?
Oh, no, for yes,
Okay.
yes, just for you to keep in mind, because I know you'll
Okay.
be back soon. And one last question, we're talking about wet lab space. I've always wanted to know about asset management and what parcels of land do we have available to attract businesses that do want to come and grow. And in addition to the lab space, what other sectors are we looking to attract and ensure that we have those assets available for interested parties? So, all right. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're very welcome. Council President Glass, would you like to go next?
The tough decisions you have as chair. Who speaks next? Thank you for the presentation. and look forward to tomorrow's deeper dive into the demographics. So I'm waiting on bated breath there. It's really good stuff. Mr. Kraft, thank you for kind of explaining the employment and unemployment data. Trying to take a step back, right, and recognize that the last year, the last 2 years in particular, have been unprecedented. And so trying to figure out or trying to discern what the employment rebound and the unemployment rate means in the bigger picture. And if there clearly was only an increase of 87 newly created jobs, that needs to change. That is not a good statistic. But with regard to the other jobs created, and I'm looking at it, I lost my page. Looking at it right now, 9,187, right, versus unemployment of 91,100. In the macroeconomic look, is that comparable to other areas in this rebound? Is it more anemic versus probably some states, Sunbelt states or other Midwestern states that have been attracting people because of teleworking? But in more established regions, do you know how this fares?
I don't, well, actually, I'm going to answer that. The one thing I just wanted to note that 87 people in the labor force, just to be clear, that's not 87 jobs. That's 87 new people looking for jobs. The actual jobs would be the employment, 9,187. Just to, I didn't know if you may have meant that, but I may have heard it differently. But yes, and also another thing to keep in mind, this is people that live in Montgomery County. They actually may work elsewhere, and I don't know the exact answer to your question when we think about, let's say, the Bay Area or Boston. My hunch is that I think we're a little bit behind them, just as a county comparable to other specific counties. But I do know, I actually did this, so I can say percentage-wise, because I thought somebody might ask this question. We are, so compared just to our counties near us in our region, this is not in absolute numbers, but this is in percentage. So this is in quarter 3 2019 up to quarter 2, I believe, quarter 2 2019, just to keep quarter to quarter, to quarter 2 2022. We are actually at 8.8% below. Currently, we're 8.8% below the level we were in the second quarter of 2019. In overall, and this is total private employment, doesn't count our federal employment. The next, so that's the lowest out of all the large jurisdictions around here. So Prince George's is at 8.1% below. Then when you move to, so for example, like Loudoun is only 0.5% below. They're almost back to where they were. That is in line with the rate that they were growing ahead of time. Frederick is at 5.6% below. Arlington is at 5.2% below. Fairfax is at 1.7% below, and DC is at 5.8% below. So we are kind of significantly below, percentage-wise, where the pace of the rebound from a lot of these other places near us.
That is the perspective I was looking for, right? We have to zoom out to see not only how we're doing in a region, but also with comparable jurisdictions around the nation, quite frankly, recognizing they're different, but we do spend a lot of time comparing ourselves to jurisdictions across the Potomac, and you've provided that information, so thank you. And then I am just going to go back to Ms. McCarthy. You were talking about home sales, and it seems like the third quarter of 2022 is light years away, or is ancient news, I should say, given everything. Do you have any updates since September of 2022?
I don't have that off the top of my head. We can certainly look up some more recent numbers and send you follow-up.
Okay.
Off the top of my head, I looked at them for December. The median home price didn't fall so much, but everything else, the active listings, the closings, are down a lot more. Without any
Anecdotally, I know that is
numbers.
true with
So-
friends, constituents, and realtors all sharing that with me. So, okay.
And
yeah.
also, the price to list also went down.
Right.
I think it went 97% or something.
good.
So.
And
Thank you.
that just leads me to say, because God knows that I can't help myself, we need to build more. We need to build more affordable housing and deeply affordable housing so that people who are making $30,000, $40,000 a year can afford to live and work in Montgomery County. Perfect example happened just last week on Randolph Road with Barrelsmere Road, an amazing project with Habitat for Humanity and other partners, where we're building homes for buying and renting, targeting people who are low income. We need more of that. And I will add very quickly that on next Monday, January the 30th, in the PH committee, which is the Planning, Housing, and Parks Committee, which I'm also a member of, we're going to have a whole day. We're going to be having discussions on housing affordability with a series of experts talking about that subject. I didn't want to talk about housing here because I'm going to be talking about it over there, and I'm saving my speech for that week. But know that that's in top of my mind too. So Marilyn Balcom, please go next.
Just a couple questions. First off, I love data, so you've already won me over with data. So thank you. So just to go back, Mr. Kraft, to what you were saying about how we compare with other sectors. So the 8.8% below pre-pandemic, that's for private. So what percentage, do we have a higher percentage of public sector jobs than other regions? Because I think that's going to really impact where we are in relation to our other jurisdictions.
We have, I don't know the exact number. I believe we have a slightly higher, other than DC, I believe we have one of the highest numbers of that. We're talking about federal employees.
Right.
The whole region obviously has a lot more federal employees than any other region, but I think I believe, don't quote me on this, we can get this data, but I believe next to DC we have the highest percentage of our employment is federal. And that's usually, there's a few reasons why I don't include it here, which is because it's a little more difficult. It's kind of tracked in a different way, so there's the numbers from BLS aren't quite as reliable, and also it's something that we have less control over. Even if you want to say we have control over the private sector, which is which is also we don't exactly have that, but we can't really grow the federal sector in the same way that we can grow the private sector. But yes, certainly, and we can look more into that. We've relied on the federal sector. NIH has tens of thousands of jobs, and we can rely on that, and they have stayed fairly steady throughout all this.
Okay.
Just a couple of other comments, and this is not an excuse, it's where we are. Before the pandemic, we had just about the lowest unemployment rate in the region. So going from just about the lowest to get back to where we were means that we're going to have a slightly bigger gap than some of the other jurisdictions. We were unbelievably low in 2018 and 2019. Our growth, our return has been sluggish. That is real, and part of that is driven by the different types of sectors that are growing more quickly and where some of the activity is in terms of growth. In terms of the federal government, we actually do go after government. We're going after ARPA-H in a big way, and it's a small opportunity, smaller than most people realize, but we don't let grass grow under our feet. That is an opportunity. It's very competitive, so you will see us continuing to work on the private sector side along with the government sector, federal.
Okay, just a couple brief ones. One is just curious about why the lumping in with Frederick. I mean, that seems like an odd combination.
It's just a technical answer that specific series, the data series from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, that's the most up-to-date local employment series that they provide, to get it that up to date, for some reason, there's a metropolitan division, the way they've classified geographies, that includes Montgomery County and Frederick County, and that's why we do it that way, just because that's the way the data comes when you want it that frequently. There are other data series where we can do the most notable one, quarterly census employment and wages, often is used. That's what I was quoting my other statistics from. That will break out Montgomery County by itself. However, it's on a couple, maybe a quarter or two lag from this one that's in this report. So it's just the most up to date. That's why it includes Frederick.
Okay, and then last one, sorry. So the information on page 2, the growth occupations, do we have any data about openings, right? Job openings? Because I'm curious about, would the growth rate in jobs be higher if we didn't have the worker shortage, right, in some of these industries? So, I mean, it may not be that we're not attracting jobs or that the economy doesn't want to grow. It's just that we don't have workers to fill those jobs.
Yeah,
if that
we
makes
have
sense.
there's one database called Jobs EQ, and that's exactly what it does. It looks at openings by employer, and you can look at where the gaps are. So it does vary. There's a worker shortage. If you could deal with the worker shortage today in the industries that are hiring, the unemployment rate would drop dramatically. So, but you can't fix that very easily. If people aren't willing to come out for those jobs, or they don't have the skill sets, then you're going to have an imbalance. So the bottom line is we do track that. Where are the openings? And then where is the job shortage? So we do a lot of work with WorkSource Montgomery and the university system on what's in the pipeline, and then what do we need to do to satisfy those openings.
Yeah, because it seems like the strategy for building the economy is different if we're just out there trying to bring in jobs versus trying to bring in the talent. Two different strategies.
In building the talent from kids who are in first grade right now, that data, I'm going back to my opening remarks, it's so wrong. We need to make sure those kids are prepared to take those jobs that we're talking about. And that's going to be the session that we're going to have next month with our friends from the Education and Culture Committee. I will just add one more question before I turn it to Councilwoman Lori Sells. When you were talking about Frederick and Montgomery County, is there something similar with Montgomery County and Baltimore City? Like creating that data and looking at it together, especially thinking of our brand new governor, Wes Moore, who adores Baltimore City and Baltimore County and Prince George's County, and we want to make sure that he sees us as partners, because when Maryland is powerful and moving forward, Montgomery County also succeeds. So any partnerships with Baltimore County, Baltimore City is a great thing.
We could certainly aggregate the data. I mean, we could get the data for Baltimore City, Prince George's, Montgomery County, look at them all. I mean, there's no data series where that Montgomery County is somehow combined with Baltimore City as they're different metropolitan areas actually. But we can certainly get the data for Baltimore City.
We're gonna put that on the table, but at some point we're gonna look into the regional conversation within the state of Maryland. Councilwoman Sells.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And so you brought up a good point. I know that we have relationships with COG, and so we're always in communication about economic indicators, priorities, shared visions. And so if there's a way that we can make sure that we're getting information from them prior to our quarterly meetings to ensure they are in synergy together, that would be helpful.
Yeah, and COG actually has a monthly regional report they put out.
Okay.
So we do take a look at that.
Yeah, we pull all that, and we can include that.
That would
as
be
an
helpful,
addition.
just to see how we're doing in comparison.
So one of the things I would suggest, I'm not sure the best way to do this, between us, we collect tons of data. The question is, what do we present? So
Yes,
quite
yeah.
often, there's going to be an area that you're going to be interested in,
Yeah.
and then ask us, can you hone in on this? Like Baltimore City, we see stats for Baltimore from time to time, we have access to them, but we don't regularly record them unless there's something that we're taking a close look at. Same thing with the region. You bet we look, because we get asked by you and others, how are we doing relative to Prince George's County? What about DC? And why aren't there data centers here like there are in Loudoun and Prince William? So we have the information. It's a question of what we want to focus on. So don't hesitate to send us an email, drop us a line and say this is an area of particular interest, and then we can pull that.
Sounds good. And then my last question, as we're talking about how to better engage businesses, especially our small businesses, will that also be a component that could be included in the report? Because we talk so much about how businesses are the backbone of our economy, the biggest job providers, but what sort of work are we doing to actually improve the business climate, not just for our big business and attracting the Fortune 500 businesses, but also the smaller businesses as well?
If I may, to the entire committee, outside of the economic indicators, I think that's an important topic for us to discuss, how we as a county tackle small businesses, because there's the myth and the reality. We talk about the 33,000 businesses that are here. And then you look at, to your earlier question, what is the mission of Montgomery County Economic Development Corporation? To focus on 6 key industries, but also businesses, underserved communities. How do you do that effectively, and where do you get the best bang for your dollar? What are those small businesses comprised of? A lot of service businesses. If you've got medium to large size businesses that are out there and that are thriving, that's going to create your cleaners. That's going to have your accountant provide a job. And so you have to look at cause and effect, and I think it's very complex. So I believe that the counties look holistically at what we mean by supporting small businesses, whether it be through funds or services, is a topic that we have not tackled very well, in my opinion. And I think we need to take a fresh look at understanding what we actually want to do when we talk about those 30,000 or 33,000 businesses, 95% of which are small.
Thank you.
And I love that because that will be one session that we're going to be focused on small businesses with you, as well as with the business centers from the county executive's office and the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce and in other ethnic communities that have a strong focus on businesses. We want to have them all in the same table so we can actually move forward with the changes that need to happen. With that, my friends, I think we are at the end of our first economic development session. I want to cry. What an exciting day. And I look forward to seeing each of you on February 6th at 9 a.m. here to talk about your strategic plan, okay? And any questions and ideas for upcoming sessions, please bring them to our attention so we can schedule them. And I think Councilwoman Lori Ansel's gave a great example of one topic that we need to tackle big time. So have a good day.